To evaluate the leaders' debate performances, we have political consultant Michael Geoghegan joining us from Vancouver. So, Michael, what's your reaction? How'd they do? Who won?
Well, by not losing, Adrian Dix in a default way kind of won. He's the one that went into the leadership debate with the clear lead. He didn't fall flat on his face. Christy did not score a knockout blow. In fact, I don't think anyone scored a knockout blow, and no one did a face plant, but everyone got some good quips in.
Okay, so let's go a little bit more in depth with each leader. Let's start with Premier Christy Clark. She was questioned about running a red light. How would you rate her response to that?
Well, first of all, I think she gave the most polished performance. She's the most comfortable in front of a camera. It was a dumb move. She had a reporter in the back of the car. It was 5:15 in the morning. She stopped at a red light, and then she decided to treat it like a four-way stop. And of course, the reporter, reported on it, and it raised questions of, is it only wrong when you're caught, as opposed to, exercising judgment, even if someone isn't reporting on you.
Okay, what about Adrian Dix? Because he has been leading in the polls. He feels it a tough question about backdating a file when he was chief of staff to former NDP Premier Clark. What are your thoughts on his performance?
Well, that was probably the most difficult of the scripted questions of the night, where, back when he was 35 years old, he had to account for, what he did was fraudulent. There was a scandal involving then Premier Glenn Clark. He was his chief of staff, and he backdated a memo, and he was caught out doing it. He's taken ownership of that. But again, in a more egregious way, it was an example of doing something when and then getting caught out. So in both instances, the public are like, well, how would they be, in other situations, other circumstances? Okay,
so the Conservatives and the Greens lower in the polls, but I'm curious if they were able to, grab some new voters. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if they grabbed any new voters. I think John Cummins, leader of the Conservatives, he got off one of the best opening quips of the night, where he said, a lot of people tuned in to see what Adrian Dix would look like as premier. I think Jane Sturck had some interesting comments regarding, healthcare reform. And for both the Conservatives and the Greens, they're very much wanting to see one or two or several MLAs elected. So it's not just Liberals and it's not just NDPers elected. The question that I found most interesting in terms of how the leaders responded to it was from one of the viewers, where they put forward the issue of decriminalization of marijuana, which is a federal issue, and everyone acknowledged that. Adrian Dix gave the most straightforward answer, where he said he's in favor of decriminalization, while Christy Clark completely bailed on the question and talked about her economic platform. So in a province where 75% of voters are in favor of decriminalization, I thought that was kind of a mistake.
So will this race affect anything moving forward?
I think it gave people a chance to, identify the personalities behind the names, see them interact, see them debate each other. I don't think it's going to cause a big swing one way or another. Now is the time where all four of those leaders, it's not just identifying their supporters, but getting those supporters to actually go out and vote. For the NDPers, it's making sure that they're not complacent. And for the Liberals, it's making sure they understand, look, it's not game over, and there's a big difference between being a large opposition and being a small opposition. And for the Greens and the Tories, it's like, let's get an MLA elected somewhere.
And so because it's just over 2 weeks until the election, May 14th, in addition to what you've just said, what do they really need to do? What do all four of them have to be focusing on?
I think the main thing that they have to be focusing in on is not only what they stand for, but attacking the weaknesses of the other candidates. For Christy Clark, it's going after Adrian Dix, the way his position has changed with regards to the Kinder Morgan pipeline issue. Adrian Dix has certainly gone after Christy Clark. She's talking about a debt-free British Columbia. At the same time, British Columbia's debt has doubled over the last 12 years of Liberal government. For the Conservatives, they've been hammering on the issue of, there's not a lot of difference between the Liberals and the NDP. And for the Greens, they're saying, well, at the end of the day, if you're really pro-environment, can you trust the NDP? Because they're not going to be as environmentally pure as we are. So, they're just hammering home their message and going after their opponents' weaknesses.
Political consultant Michael Geoghegan joining us from Vancouver. Thanks so much, Michael. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.